All right, well, good morning, everybody. This is session 8 of the primer related to the Borum Energy Solution, home scale wind turbines and towers. Today, we're going to talk about how to connect the gin pole to the tower, and also how to do the wind turbine electrical and mechanical connections. Okay. We're also going to show how to test the tower. Recall from the last session, what did we cover in session 7? We covered how to do the anchors in the ground. We covered how to connect the guy wires, connected to the tower couplers, connected to the equalizer plate, and how to connect the equalizer plate to the anchors. Right. Finally, at the end of this, we had a tower that was fully assembled horizontally. Okay, so tower assembly. Let's talk about the gin pole. So just high level here, this is what we're looking at. So you have the tower horizontally. You'll recall that we have couplers, all right? And the guy wires attached to the tower here, and we have the tilt base. The gin pole is this one here, right? It's at 90 degrees from the tower. Right? The principle of that is when you pull on the gin pole, the tower goes up. It's like a lever. Okay, so what's the main components of this thing? So you have the gin pole, all right, it's a 12-footer, schedule 40. You need an eye bolt, you need an eye nut, and you need a shackle. Obviously, all these things are part of the kit that you get from Borum Energy Solutions. Okay. So the gin pole comes already with 2 holes in it at one end. True, right? So basically, before you go anywhere, you insert the shoulder eye bolt and screw in the eye nut, right? Through these 2 holes. And then you connect the shackle to the eye nut. Okay. And then after that, then this is the part that requires more than one person. You insert the gin pole into the tower base. So the tower is horizontal. This is a tower base here. So this is how you put the gin pole right in the tower base. Since it's a 12-footer pipe, I would say in my world, you need at least 2 people to do this. But some of you might be strong enough to do it by yourself, to be determined. The key thing here is the eye nut and the shackles need to be facing the tower, okay? Because that's where we're going to connect the guy wires. All right. So now we have the gin pole into the tower tilt base here, right? It's a tower base, that's a bracket. And then what you have is the gin pole here. And you have the connection points that I've talked about. Now, you have the guy wires here, but the guy wires are not connected yet, right? So how do we connect the guy wires to that part of the gin pole? Because they're very long. They're longer because they have to connect to the anchors over here. So the trick here is what we make pigtails. If you ask me where the pigtail name comes from, I have absolutely no idea. But it's a pigtail. And so basically, it's a piece of guy wire on one hand, like this. We put the thimble with 3 wire clips, and we've learned in the previous sessions how to do that. Then this is probably longer on the pigtail. And this is how we're going to connect that to each one. So you need 3 of these, 1 for each guy wire. Okay. So the way it works is you connect the pigtail thimble to the shackle. Remember, there's a shackle here. So you connect that there. You pull on the guy wire to make sure it's tight. Right. So you tight the guy wire. There's 3 of them. So each one of them one at a time. You please the loose end of the pigtail parallel to the guy wire. And then you connect the pigtail loose end to the guy wire with 3 wire clips. So now what you have is the pigtail connecting the guy wire to the shackle on the gin pole. So you do that 3 times, well, as many times as you have guy wires. Okay, so that's how you connect these things, the guy wire, to the gin pole. Because at the end of the day, when you pull on the gin pole, you want the tower to go up. And the only way to do that is for guy wires to be tight and raising the tower. Okay, so now you have the guy wires connected at the top of the gin pole. Now it's time to do the winch connection. And I say winch here as an example. It could also be a pickup truck or a trailer. Doesn't matter, a tractor. So you connect the winch on an anchor that's probably here. You extend the winch cable and connect down to the gin pole here. You engage the winch until the winch cable is tight and the tower is starting to lift, just starting to lift. Okay. So at this point, as I said, the winch could be a tractor or pickup truck, doesn't matter. It's the same concept. So here's an example here. So here's my tower. That's a 55 footer. So you have 3 guy wires here, right? Now they are attached here to the gin pole with the pigtails. And you got a winch or a tractor or pickup truck here connected on this side. Okay. It's very important at this point to make sure that all the 3, in this case, 3 guy wires are tight, right? So if they're not tight, then you can adjust them by playing around with the wire clips on the pigtail here, right? So you make sure they're nice and tight. Doesn't have to be a tension on it, but nice and tight. Okay. All right. So at this point in time, we want to test the tower, and we do that all the time for a few reasons. One of them is you don't want to put the turbine at the top of the tower and see it go down if the tower is not ready. Okay. So as you raise the tower, right, you should expect some slack in the guy wires on the right and the guy wires on the left. Remember, guy wires are 120 degrees. So in addition to these guy wires are holding the tower, you also have guy wires on both sides. You should expect some slack in it. Now, you don't want too much slack in it because then the tower could turn laterally. So the turning could go left and right, which is not very good for the tower. Okay, so you need to avoid that. So the way to do it, you have 3 options as you have slack and the guy wires on the left and right. One of them is you can manage the slack through the turnbuckles. Remember the turnbuckles that we have? You can adjust the slack through the wire clips. So you slack the wire clips, you tied up the guy wire and retie the wire clips, but that becomes kind of time consuming. Or what we call the V methodology, which is here, right? So you use your body here, here's the guy wire, and you hold in your hands the guy wire as you use your body to pull it towards you. So that section of the guy wire stays pretty tight. So this is a test to make sure that the tower is ready to go. So at this point in time, we recommend to raise the tower to about 70 degrees vertical, good enough. And at that point, it's a good time to adjust the guy wire length. So all the slack, you probably want to reduce the slack. At that point, you can do that through the turnbuckles, the wire clips. Okay, so now the tower has been tested, time to lower the tower. Now, the next step would be to install the wind turbines on it. So you probably want to have the tip of the end of the tower at least 2 or 3 feet above the ground, so it's easier to work at. So there's two ways to do that. One is we've tested both of them to use discarded tires, right? So you put an increased number of tires along the turbine, the tower, so that you reach about 2 or 3 feet off the ground. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to put some wood, just make those X like that, that can hold the tower at a certain height. We've used both of them. Point is, you need a bit of height so that you can assemble the tower and the blades. You can see that you need a bit of height to do that. Okay, so now that we have the tower has been tested, and you set it up so the end of the tower is about 2 or 3 feet off the ground. Now it's time to do add the riser. So you're going to ask, why do we have a riser? Well, you need a certain distance between the tower, the wind turbine hub, and the guy wires, so that the blades don't hit the guy wires, right? Because remember, the last coupler here has guy wires on it, so you don't want the blades to touch that. So we have a riser here, all right, it gives you about the distance about almost 3 feet long. So first thing you do is you pass the tower cable through the riser, all right? Don't forget to do that. And then you insert the riser into the coupler right here. So that's the end of the tower here with the coupler. So you insert the riser here, and you secure that with set screws. I mean, we covered that in previous sessions, how to use the set screws. Right. So you got the riser in place, everything out. Now, we're going to talk about wind turbine, the cabling. Now you can imagine one thing is you put a 44, 55, or 66 tower with a cable in a, there's a certain weight to that cable. And we don't want the weight of that cable to be strictly on the electrical connection. That's not good, right? Eventually, the connection will move out. So what we do is we use, I call that cable sock. There's probably a different term for it. So this is what it looks like. All right. This is how you put it together. You open it up and pass through the cable in the mesh of the cable sock. And this is what it looks like at the end. You at the end of the cable sock, and you got the cable coming out. And this is the end result here. You have the cable sock, and you got the cable going through it, and you're ready to make a connection. That cable socks attach to the wind turbine yaw shaft. So it's not going to go anywhere. And the yaw shaft is connected to the tower. So all that supports the cable. Okay, so before you go too far now, the neck, this is the neck of the riser. You want to install some components that are part of what we call the yaw brace. So one component is called the lower compression clamp base. That's what it looks like. Compression ring and compression cuff. So the idea here is you put them in there because you have a cable coming out here, right? And yeah, you want to make sure that these things go through to the cable and the cable sock before anything else. Otherwise, you'll have to repeat the work later on, which yours truly has done before. Okay, so now that you have the cable sock, you can see it here. We also provide a splice kit here with heat shrink. Right? So connect the tower cable 3 wires to the splice connector, which is here. Pass the heat shrink over the splice connector. That's this thing here. Connect the 3 wires coming out the wind turbine here. We connect those to splice kit. Shift the heat sink so it covers the splice kit, and apply heat to the splice kit and the heat shrink shrinks the whole thing to make sure that the connection is electrically secure. Now you connect the loose hand of the cable socket to the wind turbine yaw shaft. That's right here. Okay, so that's the end of the cable socket here. And you see that little thing here? Well, maybe I should do it here. There we go. See this here? It fits on the bracket here on the shaft, the yaw shaft of the turbine. Now, before you go too far, time to validate the electrical connection. So using a multimeter, all right, measure the face-to-face resistance at the bottom of the tower at the tilt base. There's a cable coming out of there, same cable that's in the tower. The instruction manual provides you with the face-to-face resistance, and you want to make sure that there's no short. So measure the phase to tower. So you put one probe on the wire, one probe on the tower, and you want to make sure it's an open circuit. So that tells you there's no short anywhere on the tower or the connection with the turbine. If the results are all spec, then you need to review the connection at the top of the tower. Something was not correct. Okay, no point to continue until you get that right. Otherwise, you won't get much electricity, if any at all. All right. So two things here. So this is the place where, the little bracket here where you connect the cable socket. Right. This is the three wires coming up from the turbine. By the way, we don't use those quick connects anymore, so I need to change the picture. And this is the riser with the neck here. So the yaw shaft here needs to go inside of this. Okay, so you push it in. It's made to fit. You push it in, and the way to help with that is at the bottom of the tower, you pull on the electrical cable that's in the tower, and you gently pull on it. Right? So that would help bring that into the neck of the riser. So this is a yaw brace. That's the brace that secures the turbine connection to the riser. All right. You'll recall here, those are the three components that we put on the neck of the riser. That was the compression clamp base, ring, and the compression cuff. These two components here are already on the yaw shaft of the turbine. I have to worry about that. Okay. So at this point in time, it's pretty simple. You take all these bolts, you pass it through, and go through the lower compression clamp base here. You put the washers, put the nuts, and you tie them up to prescribed tension on it. Once you've done all that, that means that your turbine is electrically connected and mechanically connected and secured. Now, on the next session, we're going to go on how to add the blades and the furling system to the turbine and raise it at 90 degrees.